Deirdre Bolton, welcome to Money Moves, where we put the focus on alternative assets, places investors are putting their money outside of the traditional stock and bond markets. We have a great show lined up for you today. House Speaker John Boehner may start a news conference any moment now. Negotiations between President Obama and Republicans at a standstill. The Speaker's comments may give investors an indication if the fiscal cliff deadline can be reached. There are only 11 days to go. Plus, an angel organization is getting bigger wings. Angel List is partnering with Second Market to give smaller investors the chance to invest along with big tech names. You can pick what you think will be the next hot tech company. We're going to be speaking with both companies about their plan. In the meantime, though, take a look at stocks. You can tell really along the unchanged line, investors are focused on these budget negotiations in Washington right now. We are going to start, though, first with a focus on hedge funds. One of the biggest names in the business, Bill Ackman, head of Pershing Square, speaking at a conference here in New York earlier, and the activist investor said he has a substantial short position on Herbalife, calling it a pure now. And Julie, I know you've been listening to Ackman's presentation. What did he say?
It was a lengthy presentation. It just wrapped up a few minutes ago, and it was very, very detailed as to why he thinks this company is a pyramid scheme. So just to give you the sort of broad strokes here, basically has Herbalife had any kind of response?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes, they have. To attend and participate in today's conference. Very nasty. Some other interesting...
Well, the position's very clear. Julie, thank you very much. Our senior markets correspondent, Julie Hyman, and in just billionaire hedge fund manager to another, John Paulson, closing out what his investors could call a terrible 2012. Bloomberg has learned that Morgan Stanley is telling its wealthy clients to redeem investments in the Advantage and Advantage Plus funds, and they are listening. Sue Keenan has more on that story. So, Sue, these are tens of millions of dollars worth of redemptions. Why is Morgan Stanley advising their clients to get out?
In a word, performance.
You referenced it. Morgan Stanley is later in this call than Citigroup was. What's the word on the street about that?
Well, back in August, the bank was...
Thank you very much, Sue Keenan, joining us there from the newsroom with the very latest on John Paulson's two best-known funds. Well, with more on some of the places where these hedge fund trades are executed, we're going to take you to the New York Stock Exchange. It is being bought by the Intercontinental Exchange, so they're the world's largest equities market, for more than $8 billion. Josh Lipton standing by right now on the floor of the NYSE. So, Josh, what's the latest?
Well, certainly.
Thank you very much. And quick question here. What are some of the traders there saying about the deal?
Well, you've got
Lipton joining us there from the NYSE. Well, we're going to take you now from New York to Washington, D.C. About to hold a news conference to talk about fiscal cliff negotiations. So the House is on schedule tonight to vote on his so-called Plan B. That would extend the Bush tax cuts for everyone making less than $1 million a year. Chief Washington correspondent Peter Cook with me now from Capitol Hill. So, Peter, how will the vote go? First, thank you very much. Peter Cook joining us there from Capitol Hill. So we will bring you that Boehner news conference as soon as it happens, along with analysis. We are going to have an interview. You are looking right now at a live shot from Washington, D.C. House Speaker and Investment Group here today in New York. And, of course, as Julie Hyman was just telling you, the big headline there, Herbalife, and basically Bill Ackman saying it is a pyramid scheme. So we will be hearing more from Bill Ackman himself. In the meantime, though, it is getting easier to be an angel investor. Second Market pairing now with Angel List. So we are very pleased to welcome the chief strategist from Second Market, also the founder of Angel List, joining us from San Francisco. Very glad to have you both with us. Jeremy Smith, of course, you are right here in New York, and we have Naval Ravikant joining us there from San Francisco. So first of all, Jeremy, you're here, you're local.
Yes.
We'll come back to you in California in a minute.
Poor Naval.
What does this mean for your company, for Second Market?
Yeah, well, it's great because what it really does.
What do people have to do? Let's say I have $1,000. My buddy is starting a startup. I want to get behind it. I can only give $1,000. I come to you. Do I need a subscription? How does it work? Just nuts and bolts.
Yeah, so what you do, and you can access it.
Still for accredited investors, right?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's dollars of investable money that does not include the value of the person's home.
Of net worth, correct. Or
hold that thought. Naval, I'd like to bring you in. What does access, this arrangement with Second Market, access to the platform, what does that do for you?
Well, right now, Angel.
And of course, Naval, based on your own experience, that this can create a kind of bubble that maybe some projects that shouldn't be funded are going to get funded.
Yeah, of course.
Good companies are going to be able to get funded.
As far as what this means for Second Market, bigger picture, this is just one more kind of private function, private asset class that you are offering to people who want to do business.
Exactly. Essentially, we want to be.
You're allowing for people to trade all kinds of private securities, for lack of a better term. I mean, even tech shares before they go public. We know
Exactly.
Facebook traded heavily on Second Market before it went public.
That's right.
You have bankruptcy claims. I mean, you have all kinds of categories.
That's exactly.
Do you get, what kind of transaction fee do you get with AngelList that is perhaps different than some of the other securities that you're helping to create a market for?
Yeah, well, in this case, this is.
Metrics do you expect? Naval, I'm just curious, how many more people, how much more volume do you think, how much is this going to turn up the dial? Thank you very much for the time. Thanks for joining us from California. Appreciate it. Naval Ravikant joining us there. Jeremy Smith joining us here in New York. Thank you very much. Congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Well, we are going to take you back down to Washington, D.C. There you have a live shot, as we told you. House Speaker John Boehner, you can see him there. He is hosting a news conference there in Washington with 11 days to go until the fiscal cliff deadline, talking a little bit there about his plan B. Well, from D.C. and macro issues, back to how one hedge fund manager sees at least one company. Bill Ackman just finishing speaking at the special edition of the Ira Sohn conference. He presented his short position on Herbalife, calling the company a pyramid scheme. Eric Schatzker, Stephanie Ruhle are there at the conference. They're soon going to be speaking with Bill Ackman. So
The company has been around for 32 years. Bill.
Deirdre, Bill, happy holidays to you, and Deirdre, back to you.
Thank you so much, Eric and Stephanie. We're going to take you now back to D.C. House Speaker John Boehner wrapping up his news conference on the fiscal cliff topic. Our chief Washington correspondent, Peter Cook, there. Peter, what did he say? What stuck out? Peter, maybe this is the answer, but any sign of optimism, any hope in your view? Thank you. Excellent analysis, as always. Our chief Washington correspondent, Peter Cook, there with us from Capitol Hill. When we come back, e-commerce sales surging this season. The sector showing big growth during the holidays. We sit down with more shopping is done online than ever before. In fact, ComScore predicts online sales will reach a record $43 billion for the last 2 months of this year, so 17% higher than last year. We sat down with a few companies on the cutting edge of retail, the venture capitalist who is funding them as well. Ellie Wheeler of Graycroft Partners is an investor in BaubleBar. That sells designer jewelry at cut-rate prices. Nifty Thrifty, a curated online retailer of trendy vintage clothing and merchandise. The heads of those two companies joined us. So I began by asking the BaubleBar founder about the inspiration for her company. With Nifty Thrifty, what gave you the idea for the business, and at what point did you know it was more than a passion, it's actually a business? Put the entrepreneurs together. We have our VC, Ellie. Ellie, you have a lot of pressure on you to make the right investments. What did you see in BaubleBar? What did you see in Nifty Thrifty? And it's worth the investment.
Certainly. Well, both of them are obviously
helping. I heard you say they're unique, but fast followers are just part of our environment right now in any kind of business. How are you helping them protect their niches?
Absolutely. So
see it, because obviously you've heard what Ellie just said, but as far as having your sleeves rolled up, being on the ground, what are you doing to build your brand so that it is clearly standalone?
It's everything from
with at least part of what Danielle is saying, but for your own company, how is there anything that differs in there slightly?
I think there's one really important.
You invest in companies, whether it's BaubleBar, whether it's Nifty Thrifty, what is the timeline for you? When does it have to make sense for you to see a return on investment?
Well,
for BaubleBar, where it's not a seed, what's the timeline?
It's 4 to 6.
12. What has been the one surprise?
Yeah, I think there's been
that. I'm just curious to what extent all three of you think about these pop-up stores. Is this? I know you've actually opened one in Soho. How is it going? Is it supporting the brand? Do you think pop-ups are here to stay?
I think absolutely.
Visions conversation. You saw Ellie Wheeler there, venture capitalist from Greycroft. Also, Daniela Jakubowski. She is the founder of Bobble Bar and the CEO of Nifty Thrifty, Mark Kingdon. When we come back, expanding your investment vocab with Bob's buzzword of the day, a new type of investment vehicle in the fund of funds family, Fund of One. Bob's here next. Our daily buzzword, one investment term to improve your alt vocabulary. Bob Rice is here from Tangent Capital Partners. And Bob, we are talking about a fund of one, so an investment vehicle, right, with only one vehicle, but how does it work?
Well, an investment vehicle with, so there are a few advantages depending.
A bit more control because, as you mentioned, fund of funds took a big hit, but part of it, and you mentioned it yourself, was fees. I mean, they were layering on to any hedge funds at 2 and 20. So if you're going to layer on fees, you have to give even better performance.
You have to, exactly.
Thank you very much for joining us there with Bob's buzzword of the day. Mark Crumpton is here. Bottom line is next.